Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise on complex topics and get you right to the heart of what matters. And today, well, we're tackling a big one, existentialism. It's the philosophy that really digs into those fundamental, sometimes unsettling questions about why we're here.
Absolutely. Questions like, what's the point? Or why do we even exist if it all ends anyway? These aren't easy.
Definitely not. But our goal today is to give you a clear path to understanding this really key branch of philosophy. We're looking at thinkers like Sartre, Camus, Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, and exploring how they grappled with these exact questions. It's about getting you that framework.
And I think that's a crucial starting point because, well, the first thing you notice with all these thinkers is they don't offer easy answers. Actually, quite the opposite. Their shared finding, the core uncomfortable tenet is this. Life doesn't come with built-in meaning. It's not just sitting there waiting for you to find it, like some objective fact.
Okay, so not like discovering gravity or something.
Exactly. The conclusion they reach, really, is that you, the individual, you listening right now, are fundamentally responsible for creating your own meaning. And that's why it feels so demanding, right? It sort of pulls the rug out from under you, no safety net from society or religion or some grand cosmic plan, and just says, okay, there's a void. Now what are you going to fill it with?
Right. Let's hone in on that. That shift from finding meaning to making it, that sounds like the real core change here. And our sources often point to Jean-Paul Sartre, especially that famous phrase,
Existence precedes essence.
Yes, that's the one. Can you unpack that a bit? Because it sounds abstract.
It does, but it's actually the key that unlocks a lot of this.
Yeah.
Think about, say, a paper knife. Someone designed it before it was made, right? Its purpose, its essence to cut paper came before its physical existence. Sartre argued humans are the reverse. We're born, we exist first. There's no blueprint, no predefined purpose or nature. We just arrive. As a blank slate, more or less. Our essence, who we are, what our life means. That's something we have to build through the choices we make, the actions we take after we get here.
Okay, so if there's no blueprint, no innate me, then wow, everything I do defines me. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, and that leads directly to Sartre's other really famous idea. We are condemned to be free.
Condemned. That sounds pretty bleak. Why condemned?
Because we didn't choose to be free. We're thrown into existence without asking for it, and then we're burdened with this total freedom, which means total responsibility.
Yeah.
There are no excuses.
No higher plan to fall back on, no saying society made me do it, or it's just my nature.
Exactly. For Sartre, there are no excuses. It's just radical responsibility for your life, your choices, your values, and that can be terrifying. That's the condemnation part.
I can see how that leads to anxiety. If there's no external rule book, how do you even make a choice? Doesn't that just lead to chaos or nihilism? How did Sartre square radical freedom with, well, not just doing whatever you want all the time?
That's a great question, and it hits on the concept of anguish or dread in existentialism. For Sartre, the weight comes from the fact that when you choose, you're not just choosing for yourself. In making a choice, you are implicitly saying, this is how a human being should act in this situation. You're essentially creating a value, defining humanity with every action.
So if I choose to be cowardly, I'm not just being a coward myself, I'm kind of endorsing cowardice as a valid human response.
In a sense, yes, you're positing that value. That's the radical responsibility that generates the feeling that your choices have this universal weight, but you have no objective map to guide you. You can't pass the buck. You are the source.
That's a heavy burden. Okay, so they all seem to agree on this fundamental lack of prepackaged meaning and this radical freedom. But what's fascinating is they didn't all land in the same place, did they? Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Camus, Sartre. They agreed on the problem, this void, but they proposed pretty different ways to actually live with it, right? How do you turn that terror into a way of life?
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting. You see basically 4 distinct paths emerge for how to actually build meaning when you start from scratch. It shows the different ways you can channel that initial shock.
Okay, let's break those down. Where should we start? Kierkegaard. He's often called the father of this stuff.
Let's start there. Søren Kierkegaard. He felt this anxiety of freedom long before Sartre. For him, the sheer weight of choosing everything yourself was overwhelming. His solution. It wasn't about rational choice in the end. It was about a subjective commitment, a leap into something beyond reason.
You mean faith?
Yes, but not a comfortable, rational faith. He knew you couldn't logically prove God or objective meaning. If you could, it wouldn't be faith anymore, it'd just be knowledge.
Right.
So he proposed the famous leap of faith. It's a conscious, passionate, subjective decision to believe in something that reason tells you is absurd.
So the meaning comes from the act of choosing to believe, even against reason.
Precisely. It's the passion of that subjective commitment, that inwardness, that creates meaning for the individual and sets them apart. It's paradoxical. You find meaning by surrendering your rational autonomy to something uncertain.
Okay, that's one path. Faith as a radical choice. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche, he seems like he went in a totally different direction. No leaps of faith there, I imagine.
Absolutely not. If Kierkegaard leaned into the paradox of faith, Nietzsche leaned into, let's call it radical self-creation. He saw traditional sources of meaning, especially religion and old moral codes, as crumbling. God is dead, as he famously put it.
Which didn't mean atheism exactly, but that the idea of God as the source of all value no longer held power in society.
Correct. So he called for a revaluation of all values. But this wasn't about anarchy. It was about creating new values, ones that affirmed life and stemmed from the individual's own strength, their will to power.
And this is where the Übermensch comes in, the Superman.
Yeah, though that translation is a bit misleading. It's maybe better thought of as the overcoming self or the self-masterer, someone who doesn't just accept handed-down values but forges their own. For Nietzsche, meaning isn't found. It's made through this constant struggle to overcome limitations, to define your own good and bad, to become who you are. It's a process of perpetual self-overcoming.
Okay, so Kierkegaard finds meaning in subjective faith. Nietzsche finds it in self-creation and overcoming. What about Albert Camus? He seems maybe the most, I don't know, relatable for modern life.
Camus really zeroed in on that clash between our human desire for meaning and rationality and a universe that just seems silent, indifferent. He called this mismatch the absurd.
The absurd, right. And he used that myth, Sisyphus.
Yes, the myth of Sisyphus, the guy condemned by the gods to push a massive boulder up a mountain, only for it to roll back down every single time he nears the top. Forever.
That hits close to home sometimes, doesn't it? The endless emails, the repetitive tasks, pushing towards goals that feel like they just reset.
It's a powerful metaphor. We push the rock, it rolls down, we go back down and start again. Camus asks, where's the meaning in that?
Yeah, where is it?
His really radical insight was this. Meaning, or maybe rebellion, is found in the moment Sisyphus is walking back downhill to get the rock again.
Yeah.
In that moment, he's conscious. He knows the absurdity. He knows the futility. He knows the rock is waiting. And yet, he chooses to go back down and push it again.
So he accepts it.
He accepts it, but not passively. He embraces it.
Yeah.
Camus says we must imagine Sisyphus happy because in that moment of consciousness, walking down the hill, his fate belongs to him. He's stronger than his rock. He scorns the gods through his persistence.
So it's about acknowledging the absurdity, the meaninglessness of the task, but choosing to engage anyway with defiance.
Exactly. By fully recognizing and embracing the absurd, without hope of ultimate success, but with conscious awareness, we create our own freedom and meaning within the struggle itself. The act of acceptance and rebellion is the meaning.
Wow. Okay, so we have faith, self-creation, and defiant acceptance of absurdity. These aren't just abstract ideas, are they? This stuff feels really relevant. This isn't just armchair philosophy. Let's unpack that a bit. Where do we actually see these existential ideas playing out today in our lives?
Oh, everywhere. Once you start looking. Think about therapy, for instance. So much of modern anxiety isn't about having too few options, but almost too many.
Right, that feeling of paralysis when you realize you could just quit your job or move across the world or completely reinvent yourself. That's that Sartrean condemned to be free thing in action.
Absolutely. It's the dizziness of infinite possibility, the burden of knowing you have to choose, and that choice will define you.
And it connects to psychology too, doesn't it? Like Viktor Frankl's logotherapy.
Yes, very directly. Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, built his entire therapeutic approach on the existential idea that even in the absolute worst circumstances imaginable, the one freedom no one can take away is your freedom to choose your attitude, your response. Meaning isn't found in what happens to you, but in how you frame it and respond to it. That's pure existential thought applied.
And you see it in culture too. Think about all the anti-heroes in popular fiction and TV shows lately.
Good point. Characters who aren't clearly good or bad, who are struggling to create their own moral code in a messy world where the old rules don't seem to apply anymore.
They're actively doing that work of creating their own essence, figuring out their own values, sometimes making terrible choices, but always choosing.
Precisely. They embody that existential struggle. So if we pull it all together, the main takeaway isn't despair. Existentialism, at its core, is really a philosophy of action, of courage. It's demanding, yes, it shifts the whole game. Meaning isn't a thing you find, like a lost key. It's something you do, it's a verb.
Mm.
It puts the burden and maybe the incredible gift of defining your life squarely on your shoulders.
The power to define yourself through your choices no matter what's going on externally.
Right. Which raises one final, pretty important question, pulling together Kierkegaard's faith, Nietzsche's creation, and Camus's acceptance.
Okay, so this is the thought we want to leave you all with. We've heard that the universe doesn't hand you a purpose on a silver platter. Life might, in Camus's terms, be absurd, like pushing that rock. So if your life is ultimately just the sum of your actions, and if that rock is always going to roll back down, what defiant, conscious, meaningful thing are you going to choose to create while you're pushing it?